Hello and welcome to Anime Lore and Theory video. I'm Shagok, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at the Empire of Baharuth and its history, which also explains why it became such a successful nation. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. The Empire, with its approximately 8 million people, a thriving economy, and a competent military, is one of the most powerful human nations in the region, and second only to the theocracy of Slain in this regard. Its territory spans from the Great Forest of Top, the Silesian Mountains, and the Northern Sea in the west and east, to the Katz Plain in the south, and the city-state alliance of Karnasus and the Dragon Kingdom, and the lands of the Drakes and Wyvern Riders in the east and southeast. The borders and many other details on this map were, by the way, drawn by me and may not necessarily represent the actual boundaries because we simply don't know them yet. And the map included in Overlord's 9th volume actually does not show any national borders, and also lacked rivers and other military important information, likely because it's the same map that Einzelgon received from the Major of Ivantel, who noted that it was very hard to get a better one, due to wartime issues. And with that said, back to the Empire. The state is ruled as an absolute monarchy by Emperor Jerknifrun Farlord El Nix, son of the former emperor, who allegedly came to power after his father was poisoned, likely by his very own mother, in order to put himself on the throne. And he managed to consolidate power, but after offering his nation as a vassal to avoid war and destruction, he now rules only internally and must obey directives from the Sorcerer Kingdom and especially from Albedo. And the Empire, like many other states in the region, was founded around 200 years ago, after the 13 Heroes, a loose alliance of dozens of powerful beings, defeated the evil gods. And the 13 Heroes included, among others, Kino Fasris Inverun, the Princess of the Fallen Kingdom of Invernia, destroyed by the Dragon Lord Cure Elim Los Malvoir, also known, and better known at that, as Evil Eye, Rigrid Berskaru, an immensely powerful necromancer, the legendary Black Knight who wielded the infamous Swords of Darkness, and one of which, Killenarium, is still in the possession of Larkius, the leader of the Blue Roses. And this is the former adventurer group of Rigrid Berskaru herself. And of course Platinum Dragonlord, as his armor, was among the many heroes. And also the Dwarf King and the former ruler of the Dwarven Kingdom as well. Also, and this is very interesting considering that Platinum was part of the alliance, an Yggdrasil player joined as well, and there were many other extremely powerful beings. However, their story has been heavily censored by the theocracy, and according to their own propaganda, which is very present in the Empire of Baharuth, only humans were among these heroes. Something clearly refuted by the existence of Evil Eye, a vampire princess. And during this battle, they fought an epic, and I have to stress this again, an epic life and death struggle against the evil gods, likely over many decades. And now you might ask, who are the evil gods anyway? Well, they were destructive beings led by a demonic overlord, a demon king, about whom little is known, except that he was ultimately defeated, and that many of the allies that he had were not necessarily slain, but just sealed or banished, and the war led to a massive loss of human life, and a widespread destruction of entire nations. And therefore, the empire was founded 200 years ago, among other states. And shortly after its founding, the Empire recruited the powerful magic caster Fluder Paradane as a court wizard, because like Rigid Berskaru, Fluder had extended his own life unnaturally through a ritual, and therefore lived on for centuries, serving under multiple emperors, and basically becoming a pillar on which the empire stand, a pillar that stabilized the oftentimes shifting nation throughout the course of centuries. And although his relationship with the first emperor was strained, to put it mildly, that emperor still recognized Fluder Paradane's strategic importance and his power, and therefore bound him to the empire with this lucrative offer. And this foresight paid off. Fluder single-handedly saved the empire from numerous disasters over the course of centuries, and was instrumental in its growth. He also served as a mentor to young emperors, including Jerknev, whom he ultimately betrayed to study magic under Rhine Sulgon, something that has fascinated him since childhood. And therefore the empire prospered due to Fluder's support and guidance and the more or less visionary leadership of its emperors, or at least its competent leadership. And very importantly, they not lost themselves in rivalries, but they built upon each other's policies and legacies. And the empire also remained strong in the frontier zone of human settlement simply because it had to, since any internal weakness simply could not be afforded due to the constant threats from the Forest of Top, the giants and the dragons and all of the other monsters of Vassalage, and many enemies that also threaten the city-state alliance of Carnasus. And recently, the Dragon Kingdom, which is currently invaded by the Beastman nation, and it is basically hunted, or rather the humans in it are hunted for their meat. So again, it is a very dangerous neighborhood, and therefore the empire needed to stay strong. But with that said, not all policies towards non-human nations were hostile, and they were not seen as universal enemies. On the contrary, the empire does engage in trade with the Minotaur kingdom, which was supposedly founded by a human Yggdrasil player, a Minotaur. And he also introduced modern technologies like fans or refrigerators, though he didn't know how to build them, just that they needed to be built, earning himself the title of All-Talk Sage. But likely nobody said this ever to his face. And the expanding trade routes and the pragmatic diplomacy defined the following years. Still, succession crisis and power struggle did occur, but they were manageable, because again, Fluder could always stabilize the nation, and he was immensely powerful. And so we arrive at the current date, and it is suspected that Jerknev's mother, several years before the main plot of Overlord happened, eliminated his own father to place her young son on the throne. Jerknev, however, used his newfound position and power to not only eliminate rivals to the power of his family, but also rivals to his own power, including his own mother. And he also began military reforms. But he, during all of this process, declared war on the neighboring kingdom of Riestais. I mean, this is a classic, having a lot of instability at home and a lot of political struggle at home, so of course, a war is declared. And therefore, nobles, eager for glory, rushed into battle in order to use their newfound gravitas and their newfound successes to perhaps change and shift the balance of power to their own favor, only to be crushed by the elite pikemen and the deep-standing ranks of spear infantry of the kingdom. Though suffering a military defeat, the losses among the nobility were a political victory for Jerknev. This allowed him to blame and execute the weakened nobles, who again lost their own military, and therefore take direct control of the military of the state, the military and the troops of the Baharuth Empire, which also blamed the nobles for the loss of their fellow men and soldiers. And with his power now secured against all internal enemies, because none of them remained alive, the military was streamlined and professionalized, forming a standing army of 80,000 men, divided into 8 legions of 10,000 each, supported by air power and a powerful magic user base. And the following wars against Riestais were more like skirmishes, designed to weaken the Riestais kingdom internally, because the army's mobilization led to failed harvests, which crippled their economy, while the Empire's own economy began to flourish due to a merit-based administration where public offices were taken from the nobility and given to actually competent people, and the Magical Academy founded by Fluder, which again is a theme that reached through the centuries, and the Magical Academy founded by Fluder Paradane, which had a high output of actually competent casters, which greatly benefited the Empire of Baharuth throughout these centuries. So magic education became a tradition, which it very much wasn't in the Kingdom of Retold by comparison. And this not only increased the economy, but also the internal security, even reducing the influence of the theocracies, or rather the adventurer guild founded by the slain theocracy after the war against the evil deities. And to further secure the goodwill of the public, Jerknif also hosted lavish tournaments in Aventar. And of course this newly formed strategy of Emperor Jerknif to not engage the enemy in open combat, but just waiting and watching, as he spends his own energy on basically mobilizing year after year, also was a welcome change from the bloody first annual war. And therefore, Jerknif also gained, slowly but surely, not only the economic, but also the military high ground, so to speak. And to further secure the goodwill of the public, Jerknif also hosted lavish tournaments in Aventar, in the Imperial Amphitheater, to boost morale, and he was often praised himself by the crowd. However, this was also the place where Jerknif was completely defeated in the political arena by the Undead King. He was lured to Nazarick, entered an alliance with the rising Sorcerer Kingdom, only to be intimidated by its overwhelming power, and to lose military support at the Battle of the Cuts Plain, which marked the end, and the final annual war. And when Einsulgon then defeated Gorjin, the strongest warrior the amphitheater had seen in a long time, without even using magic, defeating a war troll in front of all of the people. After already shattering the forming alliance with the theocracy of Slain, Jerknif was politically checkmated and submitted himself and the Empire to the Sorcerer King. And the Empire then became part of Nazarick's sphere of influence, and its military was halved to just 40,000 living men. It was further professionalized and augmented by undead soldiers in order to free up additional labor. And its economy was also further strengthened by undead labor, the economic recovery of the Sorcerer Kingdom and later the Holy Kingdom, and the renewed trade with the Dwarf Kingdom, and generally way better internal security. And its economy was also further strengthened by the undead labor provided by the Sorcerer Kingdom, the economic recovery of the Sorcerer Kingdom, and renewed trade with a long-lost old ally, the Dwarf Kingdom. So despite Jerknif losing his political independence, he still immensely profited from the general situation and the mighty Sorcerer Kingdom of Einsulgon, and he even made a friend. And that concludes the overview of the Empire of Baharuth. And if you enjoyed this type of content, let me know down in the comment section. Also let me know what you think about the video and about the topic, again down in the comment section. And while you type, I say thank you very much for watching, thanks to all of my Patreons for supporting this channel, and as usual, I say my special thanks to Arder Daddy Arder, ASK, Bad Girl Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon S, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Din Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feralchivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Le Louche Britannia Viffy Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofrazer, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, Oh Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pentum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Q&A Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rocket Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenokai, and Sonegon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.